American tipping culture is getting out of control. It's to the point where you're almost expected to tip $5 just for walking in the store.
Hello. So at this restaurant, you will have to tip before your service. This way it will determine what kind of service you will receive. So what would you like?
And the worker comes up to me and he's like, it's not going through because it's asking you to tip. I was like, oh.
Like, it's not my fault that you don't get paid enough, you know, so I'm not gonna tip you.
If you can't afford to tip, then don't go out to eat. That's just the fact of the matter in the USA.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning back in. I'm back with another video, and this video is going to be about how ridiculous American tipping culture has gotten. Am I the only one? Am I the only one? Whether you're ordering something, you go out, you go to a store, delivery, takeout, drive-through, wherever it is, when you go to checkout, you go to pay, even at self-checkout, there's this thing of tipping where you have to tip. It's suggested that you tip, and it's just this pressure to tip.
Tipping used to be reserved for your server or your valet, but now it feels like every other purchase involves an iPad swinging around and the options 15 to 25%.
Now, personally, I believe in tipping, especially for a service that you can't provide yourself, especially for exceptional service, but it's getting outrageous.
Every time you tip or don't tip, entire industries are taking note, and that is ultimately what could lead to a change in tipping moving forward.
In some countries, tipping is considered like a generous act. In other countries, tipping is considered an insult. You give somebody a tip in another country, they'll be looking at like, they'll be confused because it's not the norm. Because in some of these countries, tipping is so rare because the workers are paid a fair wage. You know, they're not expected to get, you know, the rest of their money from tips. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes these restaurants or certain businesses, companies will underpay the workers on purpose because they expect them to make it up in tips. And it's that whole thing of, if you provide great customer service, you'll get great tips. When anybody that has worked in the service industry knows that you could be the best employee, the best cashier, the best server, the best clerk, provide A+ customer service, and the customer would be like,
the lowest is what? 0.
Nothing more, nothing less.
A lot of people have varying opinions on tipping like this.
So I usually never tip when I go out to eat or when I get food or anything like that. I think tipping is not necessary. I feel like it's not my responsibility as a customer to subsidize wages. Like, it's not my fault that you don't get paid enough, you know, so I'm not gonna tip you just because you decided to work in this industry. And fun fact, in Japan, if you tip, they take it as you're belittling them or insulting them. Like, it's offensive to them if you tip. So maybe they should do the same thing here.
Because now in America, especially over, I'll say like the last 3 years, it feels like this pressure, or it's like we're being bullied by technology to tip.
And many people we talked with say they feel anxious when faced with the unexpected option.
I feel like I should tip or they're gonna be mad at me.
Sometimes you feel pressure, you know, when they flip the iPad.
If I'm asked to tip before I get any service done, it makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
We are driven by social pressure.
How many of y'all have been to places recently where you go to pay and you see those little kiosks, or you see like the little tablets with the tip 15, 20, 25%, or the no tip feature, and then sometimes even the cashier will be like, oh, you can skip that, oh, just press no tip. Like, even they themselves know, like, they know to tell the customer, oh, just skip that, because it's crazy. And sometimes that tip doesn't even go to the workers in the store. It goes to like higher up, it goes to management, it goes to the company. You know, the ones that make the top dollar, that be sitting in the office all day, while the workers are actually busting their ass in the store. That tip, for the few people that really give the tip on those tablets, it doesn't even go to the workers.
And he was like, press the bottom right corner. And I was like, the no tip? And he goes, yeah, we don't get those tips anyway. The owner keeps them. We don't get paid enough. I was like, oh, I think it's crazy that these self-serve places are asking you to tip and the owners are keeping it. Like, that makes no sense at all.
And it's to the point where certain establishments will even cover up the no tip part with a sticker. You know how they have the options and they have no tip? Some establishments, I've seen it, where they'll cover up the no tip with a sticker. So when you go to pay, you're looking for it like, okay, you don't want to leave a tip. It's almost like they're forcing you to tip. They won't let you finish the transaction without tipping.
Oh my God.
In some places, you'll even find tip suggestions for self-checkout.
I'm literally at the airport at this self-checkout machine buying a water. Self-checkout. Who is this even going to? Like, I'm again at self-checkout.
And this is just where, in general, with the American tipping culture, there's just this confusion. Pick and choose. Do I tip? Do I not? How much? And it's this pressure to tip, even when the service is bad. I've seen many stories where you just feel like, okay, you got a service, like some woman to get their nails done, get their hair done, or it'll come out the way they want it. They still feel the pressure to tip just because that's the standard. You wanted to get this service, you didn't get the best service, but you still give a tip because that's the standard. That's what you're supposed to do. But it's like, I'm not tipping for below par service.
That doesn't make no sense.
Because of this pressure to tip within American culture, you feel like sometimes you may only have a certain amount, you may not have it. And when you're not able to tip, you may want to, you're not able to, you feel this sense of like embarrassment, or you feel guilt, or you feel shame. And then sometimes the employee is like, oh, it is what it is. Or sometimes the employee will be expecting a tip and when you don't give it, that's like some of them will say something about it. Some of them will have this indirect way of being like, wow, no tip. Then on the flip side, you have the workers, service workers, that will face potential harassment or embarrassment or mistreatment because they feel like they got to be overly nice and overly compensating to get a tip. And like I said before, I've even experienced it, not from me, but just being outside, being in restaurants, being in public, where you see other customers, other patrons treating the workers bad, being extra nasty, being extra mean, extra demanding. And then when it comes time to pay, they leave them no tip, or they leave them the bare minimum.
Texas Roadhouse, where I worked, I think I made like $2 an hour. So when you choose to tip $0.00, it's not the cute little form of protest that you think it is. You're literally denying your server who's waiting on your beck and call. You're denying them a meal or a tank of gas. It's important that you put aside your personal beliefs about tipping and actually just support the people who are serving you.
Then there's this thing with the hidden costs.
At the bottom of your bill, ma'am, there's a 10% service fee, a 5% restaurant recovery fee, a 5% fee to help us go green, a 3% surcharge that you could avoid if you pay in cash, and then of course 10% tax. Then why don't you guys just raise your prices? I mean, I'd rather know the total up front than have all these hidden fees surprise me at the end.
But for me, I feel like it's standard. It should be a thing to tip for things you can't provide yourself, services you can't provide yourself, like going to a restaurant or food delivery, cab services. You know, you go get your hair done, you go get your hair cut, you get your nails done, like things like that. I feel like somebody's providing you a service that you can't do yourself and you really like it, you should give them a tip. But that's where things get tricky, because I even remember a story, this is a long time ago, I was like maybe like 11, 12 years old, where, you know, I ordered some Chinese food and it got delivered to my house. And, you know, like I said, I was only like 11, 12. Say, I think the food was like $14 and some change. The lady came to the door with the food. I gave her $15. It's like 70-cent tip. At the time, I didn't really know about all that. And she's standing there and she's looking at me and we're looking at each other. I'm like, okay, are you going to give me the food? And she's just standing there like, tip, tip, tip. I'm like, I'm just looking at her. And don't you know, she had my money and my food, and she was gonna walk away with it. I'm like, where you going?
You talking about class? You got a lot of nerve.
And she just like threw me the food like that, and I'm like, now mind you, I was young at the time, but I still remembered that. I'm like, wow, she really got an attitude because I didn't give her like an extra $5 tip. And she was gonna walk away with the money I already gave her and the food because I didn't give her a tip for the delivery. And I'm like, what y'all think about that? Now we have today with these food delivery apps where you see it's becoming a trend for delivery drivers to confront the people they deliver food to on these apps. Like say for example, DoorDash, Uber Eats. There's ways for them to find out if you give them a tip beforehand. Sometimes they see there's no tip, they may do stuff to your food, or when they come to your doorbell and you answer, they may confront you and you be like, whoa. Sometimes people don't have the tip to give through the app. They might even want to give you cash. That's what causes some confusion like this.
Hello.
Ignore it. You keep that.
Why?
Because I didn't see a tip on the app and I put a little card in there. So please keep that. I'm sorry.
No, I just had cash. Please take
It's okay.
it.
It's okay because it's okay. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Y'all saw that, right? So basically, to explain that, the delivery driver, she got mad because she thought that the lady didn't tip her. So what she did, you saw the note at the end, she left her a note like, oh, you better be lucky I didn't do nothing to your food. Next time, tip your drivers. Because she assumed that the lady wasn't going to give her a tip because she didn't tip her through the app. But when she got there, she realized that the lady was going to give her a cash tip, which is actually better if you know about it, because it's cash that she got to keep. She would have got to keep. She felt stupid. She felt dumb because it's like, wow, I left this lady a note talking about tip your drivers when she was going to give me a cash tip anyway. You see how situations and things can get out of hand and escalated because of this whole tipping culture? Crazy. So I have this question for y'all. What do y'all think about American tipping culture? Would you go to do things, self-checkout, half of the service you do for yourself, some of the stuff you just go on to pay for something that you picked up, or somebody just handing you something, you know, almost like doing the bare minimum. Some of this work is something that you're doing yourself, but you're still expected to tip. You still have that pressure to tip. If you don't tip, there's this guilt, or it's this confusion of, depending on the service, how much should you tip? Even if you tip, sometimes it's not enough. You get confronted at the door for not tipping enough. What do y'all think about it? And for those of y'all watching this that's not in America, how is tipping culture in your country? Is it the same? Is it better? Is it worse? Do you even have a tipping culture? Is it offensive? Let's talk about this down below in the comments, because I feel like this could be a really interesting conversation, a really interesting discussion with the way tipping culture works globally. What is y'all take on the morality of tipping? Please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.